Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast about the Audubon Park Garden District in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Michael Lothrop, and today we'll be speaking with Cinthia Sandoval of Wild Ocean Seafood Market in Titusville, Port Canaveral, and every Monday night at the Audubon Park Community Market. Visit them online and be sure to subscribe to their newsletter at wildoceanmarket.com. Scroll to the bottom of the website to place an order with the market between Saturdays and Monday mornings. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to be a sponsor, please feel free to message me on Instagram at HelloAPGDPod. Thank you for listening. This episode is brought to you in part by Trevor Brown of Fannie Hillman & Associates. For listings, market trends, helpful home buyer and seller tips, email directly to Trevor at fanniehillman.com or find him on Instagram at TrevorBrown407. And with me today is Cinthia Sandoval, fishionista at Wild Ocean Seafood Market in Titusville, Port Canaveral, and Monday nights at the Audubon Park Community Market. Welcome, Cinthia.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you here. It is such an exciting day. We have been friends for a very long time, and you've been a market vendor, I think, since 2010, if I'm not mistaken, thereabouts. Yeah.
I'm terrible with dates, honestly.
It's okay.
But it feels like a very long time, at least 10 years for sure. So 13 at this point, I guess.
And you have your loyal customer base there. People can go to the website and pre-order, and everything is wild caught. It's season based, and looking at making sure that you're not overfishing anything. There are a lot of policies that you have to adhere to, but also just making sure that you have the best product that you're bringing to market.
Yeah. So, the regulatory aspect of it, that's a whole different podcast.
Sure. Yeah,
you want to go like 3-4 hours into it. So I always say this about American fisheries are the most regulated in the whole world. Mm-hmm. If something is being overfished, then you can bet that the government will stop it.
Yeah.
So it's not like species haven't been overfished, because they have, but there's always some kind of plan to bring them up to stock again.
Yeah.
But so that's basically you in a nutshell. You pretty much told everyone what I do, so I can go now.
Well, I'm so glad we did this. Yeah. So tell me about you. You had moved from Miami originally to Orlando, and you found this job at Wild Ocean was a really good fit. How initially did you get connected with the Wild Ocean family?
Oh gosh, that's a good story.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I grew up in Miami, right? I'm actually an immigrant from Honduras, but I grew up in Miami. And I went to UF for 4 years and got a degree in advertising and sociology. Mm-hmm. I thought I was going to do research, and I hated it. Okay. There was like no instant gratification. Yeah. And I figured out that that's the type of person I am. I couldn't, because I was a research aide for someone or research assistant. And it just, while I was there, it was too long, and we didn't get like the research project done. I'm like, this is crazy. Yeah. Put all the work into it. So then I didn't know what to do.
But you were drawn to facts and information.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That was the thing. It was like something that's measurable. So you have like kind of that scientific mindset, right?
Yeah, like numbers, just curiosity about groups, facts. Just even now, I'll tell you about my medical journal stuff later, but even that now is like my little like hobby.
Yeah.
So I've always been drawn to that. My dad is a doctor in Honduras, and my mom was a nurse in Honduras. So I think maybe it comes from that. I have no idea, but
I mean, it's in your DNA, right?
Maybe, right?
Yeah.
So then I didn't know what to do, and I had to pay off some of my student debt. So I went back to Miami after I graduated, and I worked for Target, the corporation.
Oh, okay.
And they paid really well, and it was the worst job I've ever had in my life. Ever.
Even worse than researching?
It was, but it paid really well. So, but it was good for that time.
Yeah.
And at the time I was dating someone, and some of you might know him. But so he's like, oh, just, come up to Orlando or Titusville and like work for my parents. And so you can get out of that job and just transition. And, I'm like, yeah, I should do that. Cause I wasn't about to leave my job without having another job, but, and that job was Wild Ocean, just a sales associate. And that was supposed to be like a transitioning job.
Yeah.
I was supposed to do something else after that and just have a job in the meanwhile.
Sure.
So that's how I ended up in Titusville, Orlando area.
So you met this fella.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. And we were still dating when went back to Miami, and he stayed in Titusville, Orlando. And he didn't have to convince me, honestly, because I was going every other weekend when I was off. I was literally driving from the Target parking lot straight to Titusville.
Wow.
And then literally driving back on Monday mornings because I had to be at work, I think I don't remember. It wasn't an AM shift. It was like 2 p.m. So driving straight from Titusville back to Target. So I was already doing that.
Sure.
And so I'm like, okay.
How long of a drive was that?
In the little GTI, it was like 3 hours or something. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a rough commute.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're young.
Yeah.
You do it.
Right. Yeah. You make it work.
It's like nothing.
Yeah.
So then I find myself working at Wild Ocean, and I just started at night at night reading more on seafood and just being more interested in it. And mind you, this is the time when Michael Pollan came out with all his books, Omnivore's Dilemma.
And so it's like 2010-ish, something like that also?
2008, 2009, yeah.
Okay.
Around there, close to there.
Yeah.
And he had come out with all these books, and I was like reading all these books, so I was already kind of getting interested in local food and starting to cook a lot and all that. So the interest was already there. So then I noticed that at night, I would just start reading a lot of things about seafood just on my off time. And I would go to the library and just like grab all these books. And finally, there was this book called Sex, Death, and Oysters. And I read that, and it was just fascinating. And I don't want to say that this book made me kind of really rethink my career or where I was going, but it was definitely a part of it.
Yeah. And
I just ended up being there a little longer than I thought, but I liked it so much, dealing with people and learning how to cut fish, learning the regulatory aspect of it.
It's pretty amazing how you can take apart a fish.
For sure.
Yeah.
People are always surprised.
I mean, you get right in there, and I've seen you take apart like a 20 or 30 pound fish.
Yeah.
If I'm not exaggerating, I think that's right?
Yeah. And then bigger than that, I've done tunas, can get up to hundreds of pounds. I mean, that takes a little while, and it actually takes some just arm strength just to keep the fish up sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've done plenty of big fish, especially my earlier days. That's what I was mostly interested in, is breaking down fish and obviously learning all about recipes, cooking, where they come from, their habitat, their so on and so forth. But yeah, a lot of it, the interest was just actually breaking it down and seeing how it looked.
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah. See that. So almost that medical mind was passed on to you, because that's anatomy, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at the inside of a being, right?
Yeah. Or even eating all this stuff too. Like once I ate a swordfish eye, I was like, oh, well, this is salty and mushy and different. Exactly how I thought it'd be. And it was exactly how you think a swordfish eye would taste like. And then, livers, and then just seeing all the fat on fish, and throughout the season, how the layers they change, obviously, because depending on the temperature and when they're rowing and so on and so forth. So I actually read about it, which I love to read, right? Not so much now. I mean, I love to read, but there's a toddler in my life, so that's kind of really hard.
You got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, so just reading about it, but then actually seeing it. I think the visceral part, or the physical part, and I realized I really love that too. It's just not sitting in an office reading, learning all this, but actually
putting it to practice.
And doing it and being physical about it, and sometimes being at the dock, and just seeing the fish come in and just walking around and talking to people, just very different aspects. And I mean, I think I've been there 15 years now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a long time for a millennial or think to be at a job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. This is a real career. This is something that you're very passionate about, and you are very into the education piece, telling people why it's important to support local fisheries, the quality of the fish and why that matters, the freshness of it, how it's caught, how it's processed, how it's flash frozen or, delivered to the market fresh. And the fact that it's it didn't travel very far, and that we live on a peninsula, so there's plenty of seafood to be had.
I know. And I point that out to people all the time. It's like, we're in Florida, we're a peninsula, and still people eat mostly imported shrimp, which baffles me.
Yeah.
You know, and part of it maybe is cost, but for example, but I don't think people know too that like you can get pretty inexpensive shrimp, wild local cod, if you just buy the whole entity. Yeah. Once there's American labor put into it, in our case, we hand process everything.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, I mean, mostly girls that, women that process our shrimp in our processing facility, they get, access to 401ks. They have health insurance, dental. So if someone touches your shrimp to process it for you here in the United States, and the price will definitely go up. But if you buy something whole and you do it yourself, then it is quite inexpensive and very affordable. Like right now, I think we have a 5-pound bag of shrimp for $15. So it ends up being $3 a pound.
Yeah.
And that's something I offer at the Audubon too. Is whole shrimp so people can just process. I process my own shrimp.
Yeah.
But I'm really quick at it, obviously, at this point in my life.
It's
so
worth
nothing.
It's
for
worth
me.
learning that skill and getting good at it, right?
Or buy a shrimp deveiner.
Oh, there you go.
They're $3. They're little plastic things at Publix you can buy and just do it yourself.
See, this is such a good education for people. We're passing that knowledge on.
Yeah.
The fact that you can eat better, you know where it's coming from, you know that it's actually from the ocean rather than from a farm where, the food sources and farms are, there's a lot of corners that are cut in raising some seafood.
Yeah, you want me to scare you a little bit?
Let's get scared. Let's
guys.
Because it's not only like here's where your money is going, but here's also what you're avoiding by paying maybe just a little bit extra. So let's hear.
So right now I'm doing like a presentation for the state of the fisheries at the Port Commission meeting this month.
Okay.
And one of the things I like to bring up or let people know that there's this resource available. In my spooky voice, there's a resource available under the FDA website. And you can go on their container refusal list. So they don't really inspect a lot of product because, it's a lot of product, the containers that come into the United States.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3% of it. I think it's about 2% that gets inspected. But
they have to take a sample size because they can't look at every single bit of it, right?
Yeah, and that's just 2% of containers. That's not even 2% of everything.
Oh, wow.
Like poundage that's being brought in. But if you go to the container refusal list, and they put up one every month, and I
already hate this.
Yeah. Yes. And I just brought the April one up. And the third most rejected, last month, the third most rejected container type was seafood.
Oh, boy.
And I just pulled up 2 different containers that were inspected. And one was because it was filthy. And what was the other thing? Maybe misbranded. And the other one because it had salmonella. Oh. I know. I was like, ugh.
Yikes.
And then sometimes you find banned veterinary drugs on the product. And I hate to say this, guys, but we are like literally the dumping ground for the world.
Yeah.
For bad seafood product.
Yeah.
Like
the U.S.
The U.S. is.
Yeah.
Literally the U.S. is the dumping ground for bad seafood in the world. In the actually developing countries, but
because our standards and our inspections, it's like so much of that gets through, and essentially it's like it's no skin off their back really if stuff gets stopped because so much of it is getting through, right? So they just keep trying.
Exactly.
Basically.
So I think that 85% of imported seafood is actually done by the top 10% of companies.
Okay.
So, or the 10 largest companies, I guess, essentially.
Yeah.
And what actually ends up happening sometimes is that those containers are sent back, but they're sent through different countries and then sometimes brought back in.
Oh, wow. And they get through.
So,
oh boy.
Yeah, it's like, it's unfortunate. So, but that's my scary,
we should be informed as consumers. Like it's difficult when, part of the government's role is really to inspect and make sure that what is getting to the tables is safe. And the fact that hasn't really been a priority and budgets have been cut and like our systems weren't stellar from the start, and there is a fee that we're paying, and it is with our health. Ultimately.
And they try. It's not like they don't try. It's not like
Sure.
the FDA doesn't, but they just don't have enough money, and it's too many imports. It just says,
Right.
and I think the Food Modernization Act that just passed a few years back helps maybe update the inspection standards, but some of it's voluntary. Actually, a lot of it is voluntary, and then they're putting the onus on the producer.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a report. You can look up on the FDA if you're that intrigued. Fascinating stuff.
You're still very much into this research thing.
I love it because I mean, you gotta know your field, and it's just interesting how everything changes. I mean, even like how they regulate seafood now, they're looking at climate-based factors.
Yeah.
So I think I was just reading this. So I guess, still read, even after the
you find the
toddler.
time.
Yeah.
Like
the Black sea bass populations moved more north because of climate change and warming waters, and then now they're they're going to start taking climate into account when they're doing stock assessments.
Yeah.
For fisheries, and that's a little more complicated. I don't think they've gotten there, but that's the goal, I think, in the next few years.
Well, the fact that they're continuing to research, and also things are changing. So it's a moving target. You don't really have, unless you have the latest data, you're kind of working with maybe not the best information.
Yeah. And, it's the ocean. So even the data they are receiving now is actually very much fisheries based, or when fishermen go out, that's the data they have. It's not independent data sometimes.
Sure.
Because it's so big. The ocean is huge, and there's so many factors and so many things. And I mean,
Again,
honestly,
that's the sample size too,
yeah,
right?
It's just a lot of factors. So, I mean, it's just kind of amazing how it all works.
It is. And there's so much down there. And seafood is amazing. Having really good shrimp and kind of knowing the difference, it's impossible to go back. There's a lot of places to get farmed or imported shrimp that's maybe not the best quality, but once you've had it from wild ocean, it's that's really the only place you want to go.
I know. And it's East Coast caught, so I honestly feel like the Gulf is great. I love it. So like a giant pool to me, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I do really think that East Coast caught seafood is a better quality seafood. I don't want to say quality. Let me change that.
Yeah.
It's just different. It's a little different tasting.
Sure.
Not quality, but
but the water has a different quality, right?
Yeah, the water
because
has a
of
different
temperatures and the mass of the body
and
of
the
the water.
current.
Yeah.
All of that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And our shrimp does taste usually different than Gulf shrimp, and that's what the people do say that. Well, they do say it tastes better usually because they've had public shrimp or sorry, Publix. I don't mean to harp on you.
Sure.
I just keep saying grocery store.
That's
shrimp.
where a lot of people do get their seafood from. And
But they say it's so different. I'm like, yeah. And people think that we put something on it. I just had an event I did, and this gentleman kept coming up to us. He's like, the shrimp, it's great.
What did you do to it?
What did you do to the shrimp? I was like, sir, we just literally steamed it. And then he keeps going. He's like, no, what did you do to the shrimp? Did you brine it before you steamed it? I'm like, sir, dude, man.
The ocean brined it.
Yeah, we just cooked it for you. That's all we did.
Yeah. Wow.
No, right?
What a difference. Yeah. I mean, that's how you know that you are carrying a product that stands out, right? When somebody has that first experience and they care about it so much that they're like, I want to replicate this. All right, well, here's where you got to go.
Just buy this thing. That's it. That's what I have you do.
Yeah.
And, we have 5 different species of shrimp in Florida. So that makes it even more fun because you're not just getting the same species every single time, or at least you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
We have roe reds, we have rock shrimp, brown shrimp, white shrimp, hopper shrimp, also known as pink shrimp. And we actually have found some tiger shrimp, which are invasive. And they're giant. They just grow so big because they're, engineered to.
Yeah.
Grow really fast.
Do people call them prawns also?
Yeah, people like to call the big shrimp prawns. And then I'm like, well,
it's not accurate.
That's a cold water animal. With my fancy fishmonger voice. You're wrong about that.
Tell me about Fishionista. How did that title come about?
So I did a couple of events with that name. I just thought it was fun. Who called me that first? Oh, it was my friend, Raquel. Shout out to you, girl. And we went to high school together. She lives in California now, but I think I used to like to dress well too, or just like funky. She
You
used
still
to like,
do. You still do.
Thank you so
Still got
much.
it.
Thank you. And she just like made that name up for me. I'm like, oh yeah, I should use that. And I did. So that's how it started with Raquel telling, the dressing and the style and
It's
the
perfect.
fishmongering.
It sounds so much better than fishmonger as well. Like
or fish lady.
Fish lady.
Love call me fish lady. Someone used to call me the fish diva.
Fish diva's nice. Yeah. Fishionista is my favorite.
Yeah,
though.
me too.
Yeah, it really suits you.
Thank you.
You got a little bit of sass and the fashion part. I love the Wild Ocean shirts too. The bedazzled ones.
Yeah.
That's some of the coolest stuff.
Not my choice, but you know what? It's been great. Everyone loves those shirts.
Yeah.
And they're just sparkly, and you don't associate them with fishmongering. So it's unexpected and fun.
Yeah, the branding is great. I think that the fact that you have been at the market as long as you have, that has really expanded the reach. I know that there's a lot of distribution to restaurants as well. Tell me about how some of that works.
So funny enough, we used to have a lot more distribution before COVID.
Okay.
Like that kind of went sour after COVID, but our retail markets actually did better during COVID.
Yeah,
and
people
kind of picked
were
up the
cooking
slack.
at home more.
Exactly.
Restaurants were kind of struggling during that time a lot.
So I think we decided to pivot, and we did a lot less distribution. But what we do now is we have middlemen that come really pick up from us. And they do a great job, honestly. They have a lot more staff for selling. They have more salespeople. I can tell you 2 or 3 of them that have like really good knowledge. One of them is my favorite because he just like is so interested in it, and he always asks questions, and he really has like a hold on what the product is.
Cool.
So we're more into that now than we are really to try and like to directly deliver to restaurants. And I think
so
our
you kind of
focus
it's almost
is retail.
like delegated now, right?
Yeah.
Somebody else is kind of taking care of that, which makes a lot of sense.
And it makes a lot more sense for us too, just because we're first receiver of seafood. So wait, I don't know if I did not make that clear.
Okay.
So we have a dock in Port Canaveral. I know you mentioned it, but that is the huge thing that makes us different. That's the big, that is the distinction for us is that we have, and we are so lucky.
Yeah.
I know we're in the peninsula, guys, but you'd be surprised how little fish houses, how there isn't a lot left in Florida, especially the East Coast.
That have their own docks.
Yes, because I mean, coastal properties are highly coveted.
Sure.
You have a lot of development, condos. At the port, you have a lot of, at Port Canaveral, where we're at, you have a lot of restaurants, cruise ships, right?
Yeah.
You have cargo that need access to the water.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're seen as valuable economically.
Sure.
But I think obviously we're valuable because there's food security
Yeah.
that comes along with us, right? We have access to food. We literally feed the people.
Right.
The masses.
And you're kind of grandfathered in a way because the port has been there for so long. Is that it?
Do you want to get controversial?
Let's get into it.
So yes and no. So depending on there's been several changes of commissioners and leadership at the port.
Okay.
So there was a time actually that we were definitely not wanted at the port by leadership. And it was very clear. And, it was a struggle to stay there.
Yeah.
But with this administration or this leadership, it's been wonderful because they actually wrote us into their charter.
Oh, wow.
So no, we just can't be just grandfather. You still have a lease.
Okay.
And they have to renew your lease and they have to be okay with you being there. So I know, right?
Yeah.
But this leadership has been really keen on like keeping us there and understands they really understand the importance of food.
Yeah.
Food security and bringing food and having this wonderful resource that not all the people are able to have actually in Florida, even though it's a peninsula.
Right.
Yeah. So, hats off to the port.
Yeah.
And actually I'm doing this presentation at the Port Commission and hopefully just being, hey, thank you guys. Can we get more bulkhead? More space?
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's us and another fish house up in Port Canaveral, Seafood Atlantic. So we both deal in I think they mostly deal in a little more fish than we do, and we do a little more shrimp. We both deal in both, but that's how we kind of distinct ourselves.
That's cool. So growing up, what was your relationship to food? Like, was that super important in your family, like where food came from and the quality and that, like, the celebration of it?
The celebration of it, absolutely. I don't think we ever thought about quality. I think when we thought about food, it was always a gathering of family.
Okay.
Like always big, always family, having family there.
Yeah.
And always rice. There was always rice.
Uh-huh. Yeah. As there should be.
Yeah, and tortillas.
Uh-huh.
My mom makes the best tortillas. That's what my toddler says.
Oh, that's amazing.
She does. She makes the best tortillas. But yeah, there was always some kind of food always around.
And it brings people together, right?
Yeah, and I never thought. I just thought about it later in life. How just how much I took that for granted.
But it also shaped you in a way, right? Or like we always value things from our youth, I think, later on in life, when it's like, it's just natural when we're growing up with it. But then when we get older, we're like, oh, that part was really cool. Like, I want to bring that back or focus more on that. Yeah.
And my mom, she's never had patience for me, or not. I don't say for me, for anyone, but I've tried in my later years now to have her teach me how to make a dang tortilla. But when you think of a tortilla, you're probably thinking of a tortilla press and like, oh, I could do that. I have a tortilla press at home. I can make those like every single day of my life.
Yeah.
But she makes them by hand.
Oh, wow.
And she does this like crazy, like round, I don't know, just finger movement thing. And I can't replicate it. And I've tried. And she's like, oh, Cinthia, like, oh, what a shame. You're a Honduran shame. You're such, oh, who are you?
That's a lot of pressure.
I know. And and get this. So I had a friend come over, a couple and their toddler. And he's like watching my mom make these tortillas because we're making tacos that day.
Sure.
And she teaches him how to make the tortilla.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you can learn from him then, right? Yeah. Oh, boy.
I know. I was like,
Wow.
I know. But I'll learn. I mean, I learned a lot of other things so far from him, just begging her to be like, let me just stay here with me and teach me how to do this.
Yeah.
But the tortilla will be like the onus, like the
the
culmination of my Honduran culinary skill. Once I can make a perfect tortilla, then I can die.
Well, I hope that's no time soon. But also, I hope that you do get to share that with the world. So yeah.
Yeah, Tavi will probably make a tortilla before I can.
Well, I mean, as long as somebody can do it, right? That's what children are for, also as helpers, right?
Yeah, he's really good. He likes to cook with me, and he does like making the tortillas on the tortilla press. And he just made his own yogurt today. Actually, he's 3 years old, guys.
Yeah.
He's not 18.
Yeah.
He just made his first yogurt today.
That's incredible. Yeah, he's pretty brilliant. I mean, he's been a market baby. We watched him grow up in the market, which is so cool, and he's pretty fearless.
Yeah. And
you can just tell. You can see those wheels turning, and he just like, He's got the you and Jimmy DNA. He's for sure.
For sure. Not just in the face, because you could tell very physically that he's our baby.
Yes.
Even in the womb, I was like, "That's your baby, Jimmy." Like, look at him. Look at that chin.
Those genes are strong.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, he has been a market baby.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know how many weeks he was when I first brought him. Like, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, maybe.
I remember. He was very new. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's just, then he started walking eventually. He started holding his cucumber around.
Yes.
You get a cucumber every farmer's market night. And he would just like dance to the music.
Yeah.
Shout out to Isabel for having good music out of it. And Gabby.
Yeah.
They're both right.
Yeah. They have a music director too. It's Jessica De La Cruz. Yeah. Yeah, they've always it's always been a behind the scenes, like who books the music too. Before that, it was Sarah, and I
remember Sarah actually.
Yeah, and it's such a good scene there. And happy Mother's Day, Mother's Week, Mother's Month.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we should celebrate more than one day, really. You know.
I mean, yeah. I'm like not a big holiday person.
Okay.
I know it's weird because I'm a big like celebratory with like family food
Celebrate
person
all the time, right?
Yeah, so it's
doesn't
like
have to be on a holiday.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. I think. Oh my gosh, thank you for this therapy session. That's exactly what it is. It's like we hang out so much, like every 2-3 weeks, and we make this carne asada, we make these tortillas, these tacos, whatever, and pupusas, and we just do that naturally. And it's like this other thing comes up, and we're like, okay, we might as well do something for that too.
Sure, right? Yeah.
Like I think we're frying fish. That actually for Mother's Day is what we're doing.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, whole fish, of course, guys, because you don't do just the fillet.
That's
you
right.
do the whole fish.
Yeah. That's a real celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. So I look forward to that. Yeah, just being with family and maybe the kids will make us a card. Who knows?
Yeah. But no pressure, right?
No pressure.
That's the best way to celebrate.
Just help with the food.
Yeah, that's why I love celebrating the birthday week, because it's like, don't put pressure on one day. It's like, do a little bit each of the days of the week, and maybe expand it into the month if it doesn't pan out that you get to celebrate that week. Life happens. It's we don't know what's going to be there. So
you know who also is a market baby? Now I think about it. Well, a market like teenager, Rafael.
That's true.
I used to bring him with me every day.
That's really true. Yeah, I was in my research. I saw like an old photo of him in like a Titusville magazine, and yeah, it was adorable. He was like on a fishing dock. Do you know the picture I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know. He was catching a sheep's head.
That's right.
Well, in quotation marks, catching it.
Yes.
I put it on there. I when we were doing that for the Titusville Area Chamber of Commerce, that photo shoot I helped organize. I'm like, I've got the perfect person for you. And I was like, he's gorgeous. He'll pretend to catch a fish for you. He's just wonderful. And I think he was like 12 years old when he was not as teenager-y.
Yeah,
so he was a little
I know.
a little easier to deal with, but
right.
Yeah, but he came to the market every single day. And now he's a man. He's 18 now.
Yeah, what an environment to grow up in too, right? Just the social factor and the community, the music, it is such a celebration. Like that market is such a special place.
It really is. And then when I bring him sometimes, now that he's 18, everyone recognizes him. They're like, oh my gosh, you've grown. And it's just so nice to see people that I've seen him for years. Yeah. Just be like, wow, what are you doing with your life? Like, what are you doing? You're going to be like, asking all these questions. And he lights up because he just, I think, obviously likes people being interested in his life.
Yeah.
And it's just wonderful to see. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that I'm still able to, because I was really worried actually when I got pregnant and and Tavi came into the world. Mm-hmm. And I was like, am I going to be able to do the market anymore? Because it's, it is later. Yeah. I'm like, well, the sleeping schedule and all this, but you guys, Gabby really has been so flexible with me and amazing. And that's when we kind of transitioned into the pre-order. Because before I used to bring the fish already cut and, per pound and bring a scale. Yeah. Actually, I think the COVID forced us to do that too, actually, and I think about it. But it kind of really worked out where I knew exactly how many people were coming to pick up. And once the last pickup's done, then I'm done. And
yeah. And you don't have to deal with anything left over and figure out what to do with it, right?
Yeah. And it was easier with Tavi because then I could get him to bed at a decent time and on a Monday for school the next day. Yeah. Preschool. Yeah. So I'm so grateful that we were able to still do the market because it's really honestly one of my favorite things to do. Yeah. From all the things that Gina and Mike are my bosses at Wild Ocean, but they let me do a lot. They're really kind of wonderful with me in that way. Yeah. They let me take on a lot of projects and just wonderful bosses. That's probably why I've been there 15 years. Aside from the fact that I just love the seafood still to this day, it just interests me. Mm-hmm. Just having supportive, good bosses that just listen to you and know your needs. And then if your life changes like it has, we know with children, they're flexible. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing they let me do all these years is go to the farmer's market and keep going. And
it's very smart. I mean, it is such like, and every time that we go to Playa Linda, the beach that's in Titusville, which is our favorite beach, we always stop at Wild Ocean, like whether we're getting smoked mullet dip or shrimp dip, or, they've got sandwiches and salads and tacos and bowls, and like the food is really good. Yeah, thank you. Like it's always been really good. And I know like Jess consulted and kind of did some some work there of like, let's tune these things up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's amazing food. So you can just go, like, it really is like one of the best places in Titusville to eat.
I think so too. And I think I will say this, like, it's not that it's a super interesting menu. Like, it's very casual, but what it is that we just use really good product.
Yeah.
Like, just really good product all the time. And there was always a local wild caught fish as the fish of the day. Like, we will put that in all our whatever menu item because we don't like, so this is how I approach it, right? And we thought about this, we talked about this at length before we opened the restaurant part of it, is do we want to have a mahi sandwich, a grouper sandwich, a whatever sandwich, or this basket?
The standards, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, well, then what's happening there is you're really depending on this thing to be in stock.
Sure.
And mahi are highly migratory. I mean, you're gonna find mahi here a week, two, and then bye.
Yeah.
And then you have to get it from somewhere else. So what we decided to do is just have this one fish of the day. This is what we're catching right now. This is what we have a lot of. This is what we can, put in all these, items. And if you really want grouper, fine. Go to the fish case, pick out your grouper, buy it by the pound, and then we'll charge you to like make it into the basket or charge you to make it something else. But we never wanted to have something in stock all the time because that just isn't how it works in nature.
Yeah. It would have to be imported, right?
Yeah,
it
it would
wouldn't
have to
come from your fishery.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say the only things we do have imported sometimes, and we really try not to, but I would say it's really hard not to, is tuna.
Okay.
Like the yellowfin tuna. It is a global commodity. So it's traded all over the world. We deal with one company out in Fort Lauderdale. It's called Dayboat. And they mostly deal in swordfish and tuna. And that's usually where we get our domestic product, because not our domestic tuna. And if we can't get it from there, we'll get it from Miami, which is sometimes imported. So that is one thing that is very difficult to always have local wild.
Yeah.
But all the lazy fish are easy, like grouper and snapper. I call them lazy fish. Just I like to hang out at the bottom and just like not do anything. Anyway, but we can go into omega-3 fats and lazy fish later.
Yeah. And I mean, mullet, like having smoked mullet in a dip, I mean, mullet is such an underrated fish. I feel like
So underrated.
Yeah.
I mean, I think. I know this is far-fetched when I call it the salmon of Florida, but this is why I call it the salmon of Florida. Not because of the taste, but because, first of all, it's higher in omega-3 fats than your lazy fish. Poor lazy fish. I shouldn't call you lazy fish.
I mean,
your
like,
white, mild fish.
Bottom dweller isn't much better, is it? Right? Or bottom feeder.
Yeah, well, anyway.
Yeah.
Or flounder, they're just hanging out on the bottom. But
we could call them relaxed.
yes, relaxed.
Yeah.
Or like, what's Jimmy?
Casual,
Yeah,
casual fish.
Margaritaville fish.
Yeah. Okay.
So mullet is a little more active than that. It's got a little bit of more higher omega-3 fats. It has a gizzard you can eat. I mean, the gizzard is delicious. I love chicken gizzards. I love
too.
Offal and liver and all these other things. But it's really quite good. And the best time to have it is usually during November, December, January when it's rowing. And what it does, it actually does the opposite of what salmon do. They go out into the ocean versus because they come from freshwater, brackish water, and then go out into the ocean actually to mate. And so whereas salmon go out from saltwater into freshwater to, procreate. And to spawn. So they kind of do the opposite of salmon. But there's plentiful salmon. We have so much of it in Florida. I mean, to the point that it was actually overfished in the 90s with the gill netting, but definitely not anymore. But this is really the best time to have mullet is that early winter season. They're fat. They're delicious. I like them smoked, fried, or broiled. With a little capered tomato sauce, they can take on like a little stronger taste when you're cooking them. Like I said, tomatoes and capers and a bunch of garlic. I wouldn't do like a delicate sauce with it. And they're just a really inexpensive fish too. Yeah. Oh, and the best part is the roe. So you have this roe that you can harvest from them. And in the Gulf, they do millions of pounds of roe when they're rowing. Like an insane amount that's exported into Asian and European countries. And
where people appreciate it more.
Where people appreciate it more. This like gold, this like real gold. It's really a beautiful yellow color. And what you can do with this, you can make botarga, or you can dry it and cure it. And this stuff, like when I first went to Italy with Gabby for slow food, amazing trip. That's when I saw it the first time is this row, this botarga. And I'm like picking it up, and it's the size of the entire row. There's 2 sacks. And I'm looking, and I bought some obviously, but like, I mean, this stuff can go now for like anywhere between, I would say $25 to $50 a pound.
Wow.
Because, I mean, depending on the quality.
Sure.
And we at Wild Dish sell it for like $8-10 a pound. Like, you know, raw, fresh, of course, you have to cure it yourself.
Yeah.
And we like to keep a lot of it for ourselves. We try not to sell it outside of either shipping it or our retail markets. I just feel like it's such a gorgeous, beautiful, very important product.
Yeah.
And very little people know about it. And just the mullet gives us so much.
It does give us so much.
It just gives us so much.
And it's such a great hairstyle too.
Yeah.
You know, it's an underrated hairstyle and an underrated fish, I feel like.
You know that the marketing department, I don't know if it was Florida, but the marketing department, seafood marketing department tried to rebrand it.
Really?
Yeah, like 10, 15 years, 20 years ago. I forget. It wasn't when I was involved, but into Liza fish or Lisa fish. Well, I think in Spanish, some people call it Lisa.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
The marketing
people
reps,
might be more into it. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're like mullet. Yeah, like I don't know what came first, like the hairstyle or the fish.
I don't know either.
But
yeah, I didn't research that enough. Yeah. I mean, it does make sense. There's like definitely a connotation with that word.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and they tried to do the same thing they did with the Patagonian toothfish, which is Chilean sea bass.
Okay.
They rebranded that as Chilean sea bass.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really a Patagonian toothfish.
Yeah.
I think there was another different name that did not sound appetizing that it had before that, but yeah.
And I mean, I think of sheep's head too, is an interesting fish. And I don't know that necessarily that's a bad name, but they have such a specific face to them too.
Yeah,
right?
the teeth are scary.
They're very scary.
It's human teeth. Like they look like human teeth because they eat clams and barnacles and crabs. So they need bigger, tougher, like molder-like teeth to tromp on them.
Yeah.
So then they smile at you and it's human teeth looking back at you. And that could be the stuff of nightmares. Like I try to get my toddler helps me cut. Well, he doesn't help me cut fish, but he hands me the fish.
Yeah.
I make him hand me fish. And so he gets to know it. And he looked at it once. He just kind of dropped it because he was like, what is this?
What did you do to this? Yeah, it doesn't look very natural, right? I mean, it's a very unusual looking fish.
It looks like someone played a prank on you.
It does.
You're like, where are the cameras? Why does this fish have human teeth?
But sheep's head is delicious also.
It is. It is very, very good, especially when it's nice and fatty. And it's a white mild fish. It's a great fish. Substitute for any white mild fish out there.
Just don't look it in the face and we'll all be
Just
fine.
don't meet it.
Just don't meet it. Yeah, you don't need to know it. Yeah. I mean, everything that I've had from Wild Ocean has been amazing, and we'll often do like a fish order for Monday night, and then have like a Tuesday family dinner. You know, and we used to have a much bigger family dinner in the before times, and I miss those. You know, but we still carry on the tradition. Usually, Jess comes over, and we'll do like a little family dinner. So
she's a great cook. So she's cooking the fish.
Incredible. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Jess can do fish like very few people I know can do fish and vegetables.
It's true.
Yeah.
There's nothing that she cannot do. I mean, I was at an event last week and the dessert that she had was this like custard with peach and this like biscuit, and it was one of the best things I've ever had. I can't stop. Had candied thyme on the top, and I'm just like, should I be chewing on this? Because I am. Like it was awesome. It was so awesome. She was very excited about it too.
We all know who Jess is right from.
Jess Tantalo of Red Light, and soon the kitchen will be open. We keep saying soon.
Yeah.
But it really will. She does this one. She's one of the few people that uses mullet too. Yes.
So she does this smoked fried mullet. Oh.
Yeah. That was
So,
actually at the event as well.
yeah, and I think she's one of two. And Kathleen Blake used to do like a mullet pastrami, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Kathleen Blake from the Rusty Spoon, and that was that was. I mean, it was just smart and talent, like just talent and just being creative with mullet. And again, very few restaurants anyway sell mullet. Even now, if you're a native Floridian and you grew up with like smokehouses smoking mullet around,
Yeah.
like you don't find that anymore at all. I mean, it's very rare to find. I actually have a place in the Gulf that buys a bait house that buys like smoked fish dip off of us online, like buys retail fish dip online, because there's like very few people that smoke mullet now, even in the Gulf. I think St. Peter still does it, which is they're a huge smokehouse that still does that, but very few.
Yeah.
So it's a dying art.
I mean, yeah, it needs to come back because, everybody needs to try the smoked mullet.
Yeah,
Put in your order for it, and
Jess still uses it in a much more creative way. And Kathleen Blake used it also in a much more creative way. But hopefully other people will use it too.
Yeah,
there's a lot of mullet, guys.
There is. There's plenty to go around.
Plenty of mullet, especially during roe season.
Yeah.
Oh, and you want to talk about the mullet milt?
Yes, please.
So the mullet roe is that's the female, right? That's the female roe sack, and the mullet milt is the semen. We can all say semen here, right? Because we're adults here.
Yes.
Okay.
It's very scientific.
Yeah, that's what it is, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason they go out in the ocean is because they need that pressure.
Okay.
So it ejects, and they kind of like come together in the water, and how that's how they procreate.
They use the current to their advantage.
Yeah, that's.
I see. That's very smart.
I know, it's brilliant, Mother Nature. And so the mullet milt can be eaten, and I've had it, and you can fry it, of course. You can be a lot fancier with it. I think actually sushi restaurants like figured out a lot more interesting things to do with it. But I just have it fried because Florida.
Yeah.
And it's like this, I mean, I don't want to say custardy because I don't know if you want to associate that with fish, but almost oyster-like in the texture and almost the taste too. And that's another thing also that mullet gives us.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they should rebrand it to the genius fish. Right. They're smart enough to have figured that out. So, I don't know. There's so many other names besides mullet that it could have. That was it's a rough go, Well,
yeah, here's a mullet queen.
Yeah.
Talking about mullet again.
So let's talk about the history of Wild Ocean, and it's like the relation to Dixie Crossroads and the advent of the rock shrimp machine and all of that history. It's very interesting, just sort of the origin story.
Yeah, the lore.
Yeah.
So Rodney Thompson was a pioneer, like in any industry he was in. Really, he used to do boat racing. Then he started I don't know which one came first, actually, the boat racing or the building boats. So he was. This is the story, and actually, it's true because his daughter co-owns us, so she verifies it.
Yeah.
So he was building fiberglass boats, and he was a really, I think they were called T-crafts, and great boat builder. Just, I mean, impeccable work. And he built one of the largest ones. He built a shrimp trawler, and no one wanted to use it because they were like afraid. So he then went out and started shrimping on it. And all he could catch was a rock shrimp.
Which was considered kind
Trashy,
of trash because it was so hard to process.
Yes,
right?
It was so difficult to get into it, but it was delicious. And few people knew about it, and few people would actually cook it and eat it, but it was delicious. And so supposedly a NOAA captain told him, if you could figure out how to get into these, you'd be a millionaire. And he wasn't. That didn't happen. But, he figured out. So the story is that he would put his family to work every night and figure out how to open them and cook them. And I don't know who was the one. It was Sherry, which is one of our owners, or Laura Lee, or someone, one of the children that was like, oh, this is great broiled. And so they broiled it and in the shell. You have to broil it in the shell because just like chicken imparts, like the chicken bone imparts flavor on the chicken meat, the shrimp shell imparts flavor onto the shrimp meat. So then they opened up, I think it was actually called Sandpoint before Dixie. And they served it there. And then it was Dixie Crossroads. And that's mostly what they did. Just rock shrimp, rock shrimp, rock shrimp, rock shrimp. And it was like huge local favorite. People would go, actually started traveling to come get it. It was the only place you can get rock shrimp, split and clean. And then kind of like that's how Wild Ocean or Cape Canaveral Shrimp Company really started. Cape Canaveral Shrimp Company came first.
Okay.
And he opened up the processing for that, hand processing. And he built the machine that splits it. And we still have those machines today. And it's almost like an honor or an achievement or incredible that we still have this little piece of machinery, but also it's almost like, oh, you still have that machinery from 20 years ago and we just keep fixing it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get the parts for it.
I believe it. Yeah.
But we do. And what's really cool is that it works. It's a tiny machine. It works wonderfully. It's literally could just sit on your lap. It's small. And what it does is that, well, first you take the head off yourself. You hand process and take the head off. And then you place it on a little conveyor belt on the machine. And the shell side goes down, the belly side goes up, and it splits it with a little saw blade in the little machine. And that's how it splits it down the belly, because you want to split down the belly. And actually it makes a little split in the back too, but the belly part's bigger, the split. And that's how it comes out. And then you hand process and take the vein out. That's how we've been doing it for like decades, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
So then Cape Canaveral Shrimp Company was just really doing rock shrimp and some other shrimp. And then it wasn't really, then they started the retail market and it was small. And it really wasn't until Mike and Gina, who I mostly work under, who came, was it 18,
Those are the
20?
Merrifields.
Yeah, the Merrifields. Mike and Gina Merrifield, who came in and kind of really grew the market part of it.
Yeah.
Because really, our biggest customer at that point was Dixie Crossroads before Gina and Mike came. It was like 90% of the sale. I mean, it was huge. They were just, if they went under.
It's kind of a built-in,
exactly.
that's your
then
customer.
We would go under.
Yeah.
And, Dixie Crossroads started evolving too. So they started having other product, not just rock shrimp, not just local shrimp necessarily. It started doing snow crab, lobster, all this other stuff. And it makes sense.
Sure. It's what the customers wanted. They want some variety if they're going back over and over.
And so after Rodney Thompson owned Dixie Crossroads and Wild Ocean, or Cape Canaveral Shrimp Company at that point. So Sherry took on Cape Canaveral Shrimp Company and Laura Lee Thompson took on Dixie Crossroads, and she got a partner, Clay, and then Sherry eventually got a partners, Gina and Mike Merrifield. And so they're two separate companies, but it's still under the family essentially.
Yeah.
So I can see how people confuse us all the time. Like people will email and be like, "How's Laura Lee?" And I was like, "I don't work with her."
Yeah.
I don't know, but I have her number. I can text her, for you. And I don't know if you know about Laura Lee Thompson. She's amazing in her own right. She's actually right now on the board of the South Atlantic Fisheries Management Council, doing a lot of good work. She was a grouper swordfish fisherman.
Wow.
Fisherwoman.
Yeah.
Before women, this is in the 70s, I think.
Wow.
Like she was so productive.
Yeah.
And it was just rare to see a woman captain. It still is rare now, honestly.
Right.
But she was so productive, such a good fisherman.
Wow.
Fisherwoman.
Yeah. Isn't that difficult to say?
It really is.
And fisher is accurate, but it just sounds odd to say that, right? Yeah.
So I'm so used to saying fisherman. So, she's like the Linda Greenlaw. If you've ever read her books, she's the lobster woman and a fisher woman upstate. And she's written a lot of books. And she was a character was played in the Perfect Storm.
Okay. Yes.
Based on her.
Right.
And I consider like Laura Lee Thompson, the Linda Greenlaw of the South.
Oh, that's so cool.
And, she used to be a river fisherwoman. Look at me, fisherwoman again. Like she used to be a river fisherwoman, and she was actually just interested in lagoon fishing and freshwater fishing, but then she got into saltwater fishing. And then, she's done a lot of actually environmental work too. Anyway, beside that.
It's all connected, right?
It's all connected, exactly. And Sherry is very active. Sherry McCoy and Gina and Mike are actually very active in the South Atlantic Fisheries Management Advisory Councils. I'm actually on an advisory council myself, the Information and Education Outreach, I think it's called committee, or advisory panel. So we're all kind of active, but that beside the point. This is the history of Wild Ocean. Yeah. So
it's all connected, though. Yeah. It really is.
So then, so they grew Wild Ocean, right? The retail part of that, and then Dixie's like one of our customers. And now we've diversified. And Dixie's still a big customer of ours, but they're not necessarily the biggest or sustaining the business. And we've grown to shipping. We've been shipping for a while now. We do the farmers market, of course. We had the 2 retail locations, and we have the restaurant in Titusville. And we do wholesale still. Like you can come to our, back door and with your licenses and buy a bunch of shrimp from us or fish. So, but you know what restaurant we do supply here?
Which one?
Papayama. Like directly. Yeah.
Cool.
And that's because they live so close to me.
Yeah.
And I could just like take my little cooler and deliver to them.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's good to know too.
Yeah.
All right. What are some other restaurants in the area that you know of that are receiving your product too?
I know Thirsty Gator does. They've been for years, like at least a decade since I've been there, because they do rock shrimp. They like cook rock shrimp.
Cool.
That's their big thing.
Yeah.
So I know they do. Oh my gosh. A better like Chris would probably be a better person to ask than me. But I just happen to know Papayama because I delivered to them on my way out.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk to Chris and we'll get a posting about it. So people know where they would. Because I feel like some people are a little standoffish about cooking their own seafood. And it's once you kind of learn to not overcook it and temperatures and things like that, just the right way to do it. What are some tips that you give to people as far as like not being afraid?
Yeah, the big one is overcooking it. The next big one actually is like leave your seafood out to get to room temperature.
Yes.
And pat dry. Like you want it really, really, really dry, particularly your fish. You want it super dry so it cooks well and sears on your stovetop. And I like to, if you can't think of anything to do with your fish, just sear it.
Yeah.
Sear it, high temperature, high smoke point oil. And that's it. It'll come out beautiful every time. And you can always make a sauce on the side or salt and pepper it. And I mean, that's when I'm feeling very lazy and I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And we have fish.
The fish is delicious enough on its own,
exactly,
right?
So that, and we
little
usually
lemon,
do
little citrus.
Yeah, that's it. And then we do fish taco Tuesdays usually at my house, and that's what we'll do.
Yeah,
we'll just like, sear it, done.
Yeah, I think that mentality of like, you have to get it straight from the fridge and cook it. It's going to be bad if you let it like come to temperature, before cooking it, and that change, that one thing, and then the moisture level, like actually getting the excess moisture out, like those things change it entirely, right?
They really do. It's like, how in Europe, people just leave their eggs out. And they cook differently when they're at room temperature. Yeah. Like exactly. It's just the same thing with fish. You want it to come down, like call your partner or whoever's at home before you get it. This is what I do. Yeah. I'll call Jimmy and be like, hey, can you take the fish out like an hour before I get there? Yep. That way it comes down to room temperature. I mean, I've not done that sometimes and I hate the way it comes out. Yeah. Like I'm just so disappointed in myself. The texture and even the flavor, right? It affects the whole thing. Yeah. It's a bummer. It's such a bummer, especially because seafood is so expensive. It can be. Yeah. And you don't want to ruin it. So yeah, take it out, room temperature, sear it, salt and pepper it, or salt it at least. Yeah. And again, don't be afraid. If you're afraid that you're going to cook it, yes, definitely be afraid to overcook it, but keep checking it. Just open up the fish. Don't be ashamed. Like get your little spatula or a fork, open up the fish, see if it's opaque. You'll get it eventually where you can just tap it just like a steak and you can feel when it's ready. Yeah. You'll get to that point. Yeah. But it won't be overnight. So just open it up and make sure it's cooked and then take it out right before it's fully opaque, right before then. And then it comes out really kind of perfectly. I'm a very simple cook. Like super simple. Simple is better when you use good ingredients, with seafood, right? Yeah. Especially, with seafood. And seafood is such a quick thing to cook too. People also do forget that. Like it doesn't take hours. And I like it like that. Yeah. Because you have such limited time in your day. Sure. And if you have your sides prepped already, it's like, you just put it on, you're good. You're good. Yeah. Super quick. It's the quickest thing you can cook and it's super safe protein. Obviously please eat it within 1 or 2 days of buying it, especially. And I will say, okay, so this is interesting. Okay. So, like, I've seen fish, the Margaritaville fish, like last
Uh-huh.
like 2 weeks,
Yeah.
like whole.
Okay.
Like can last 2 weeks whole, and then you fillet it and it smells perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when you fillet it and then don't have it under refrigeration, cold enough for refrigeration, which our fridges are not cold enough. Like, just
At home,
at home, they're just not.
Yeah.
So if you're going to keep fish in the fridge, try to keep it with gel packs under and over.
Mm-hmm.
Ice is fine too, especially in the Ziploc bag, because you don't want it.
The moisture and
Yeah, in the fish, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want the water getting inside the fish fillet,
Mm-hmm.
especially in oily fish. So yeah, fish can last a little longer than most people think,
Mm-hmm.
but usually in its whole form, it has to be super iced down in a refrigerator.
Yeah.
So, and then the best way to tell if a fish is fresh is usually when it's whole.
Mm-hmm.
So I do this thing, especially with young kids, because it grosses them out.
Yeah.
Where I get a whole fish and I open up the gills
Yeah.
and I make everyone smell it.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's a fresh fish.
Yeah.
And I tell them, like, okay, well, the first thing to decompose is inside our bodies. And same thing with fish, it's your organs. The gills are considered an organ. The reason we leave the gills in versus all the guts, we take the guts out usually.
Mm-hmm.
The fisherman actually does that usually before it's landed on our dock.
Mm-hmm.
Is because that decomposes. But the reason you keep the gills in is because that's an indicator of freshness.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
So we want to know that.
That's the canary in the coal mine, right?
Exactly. So those gills don't smell fishy
Mm-hmm.
when they're fresh. They actually smell of the ocean or of the river or of the lagoon or of wherever it's coming from.
Yeah.
That's what they're supposed to smell like. It's actually the slime that gets on your finger and then dries up a few minutes later, that starts smelling.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's what makes our place smell too, is the processing. It's not the fish itself.
Right.
Because it tends to be very fresh.
Yeah.
So the best indicator of freshness is the gills. If you can buy whole fish and get it filleted after, that's why I fillet for the farmer's market. I fillet the day of.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't, and I'm there on Mondays. I'm not there during the weekend. I can't stand it. Like it has to be done the day of. That way people can have it in their fridge for 1 to 2 days after that.
Yeah.
But if you're weird about buying whole fish, that's cool.
Sure.
So now what you do now is you ask your fishmonger, hey, can you I want to smell the fillet. Any reputable fishmonger or fish house will be like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's weird about it, like I really wouldn't trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
good to know.
Yeah. That's the next best indicator is just smell. Well, smell first the gills if you can. If not, then smell the fillet.
Yeah.
And if you feel weird about asking about smelling the fillet, then just look at the fillet. Is the bloodline just even? Has it is it muted out? Is it darker? Is it bright red? If it's bright red, it's perfect. If it is discolored and goes into the rest of the meat, like a watercolor, it's probably a little older.
Okay.
So I wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's going to harm you.
Yeah.
It's just not going to taste as good.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Now the oily fish get bad really fast. The high omega-3 fat usually fish, or the like mackerels.
Our genius fish.
Yeah, they do. They get bad faster. So those almost are imperative that I think you smell them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can't tell. And I mean, with a tuna, you can tell because of the darker color, because all of it's red. It's going to be bright red if it's beautiful. If it's like a bright pink, it's probably CO2 treated and previously frozen. But I have so many tips. I mean, I don't know when to stop it.
This is all helpful, though. I mean, I think that the mystery behind fish has kept a lot of people from buying it and preparing it, and also it's like we all grew up on like fish sticks and things that were like less than ideal, and a can of tuna, which isn't the greatest product. It's not the worst, but there are some like better brands out there that do that, and even like at Wild Ocean in Titusville, you can get the tuna, or you can probably order it too, right, for the Monday night market, the not from a can tuna. And so it's like tuna fish, like you're used to, but it's like the best version of that.
Yeah, I love the tuna.
It's so
tuna
good.
Salad. It's really good. We make it with apple core usually, and I mean fresh.
Yeah. Or
local frozen, or we freeze it for later.
Right.
So, and it's just a really, really, really good quality. It's just good. It's just better than from a can. So that's why we call it that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like going to the beach and picking up some seafood and just sitting and watching the waves and having that picnic experience right on the beach is like one of my favorite things about Florida, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of a pub sub, get your tune
Or both.
Sal.
I mean, you could do both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of it. All
That's
of it
right.
is so good. It's such a treat. And we're so fortunate to know you and to be friends with you, and the fact that you are part of the market family and that celebration and that culture and just all of it. I think it elevates everything that we do here in this neighborhood, and we definitely have you to thank in large part for continuing to bring it here. You know, you're such a key part of that. I was just thinking about how much like I miss being your neighbor too, because you were right around the corner from us. Yeah. And we were so spoiled because we were hanging out all the time, and that was
the cool apartment.
It was the coolest apartment in Audubon
That's
Park.
probably why I married Jimmy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He was in there. Yeah, like the cool guys. The cool apartment is the apartment over what used to be Bluebird.
Yep.
I forget what's there now. Is it
Sugar Dough?
Sugar Dough.
Yeah.
It used to be one apartment, not
Right.
two.
Yeah. So they've split it up so they can rent it out to two renters, but back then, and like dance parties on the roof, and
So fun.
it was the best.
Yeah, and I mean the rent was great, weirdly great.
Yeah.
And there was so much light in that apartment. I mean, it was just
magical.
It was so
You
great.
felt like you were in a whole different place too.
Yeah, and we were we were so close, weren't we?
We were literally
it was
neighbors.
Super fun. And honestly,
come
the
over and
landlord
swim.
was great too.
Yeah.
She was great. Yeah. But I think the plans they had were to do that, and we had to eventually move back because that's when I started caring for Raphael, and I'm like, oh well, we need to figure this out. Like, we need to actually be somewhere like permanently.
Yeah.
So now we're by Curry Ford and Bumby in the Hourglass area,
which is a great neighborhood too.
And he was zoned for Howard, which is initially that was the driving factor in trying us finding a home, is that he was going to that magnet school, and we wanted to make sure he stayed in there. And it was actually first when we finally bought that house, it was zoned, but the next year they made it into a fully magnet school. So it was just lottery and no one was zoned anymore. And we're like, oh, okay, great. Like bought this house.
Yeah.
But it's a great house. But
you're in a great spot. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was so fun.
It was so fun.
Fun time.
Yeah. 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 We've just gone through in knowing somebody for as long as we've known each other, it's like there have been so many different like phases of our lives too. Right. And it's cool to know you, and I'm so grateful. And
I'll back at you.
Thank you.
I'm so glad we're all friends.
I know.
Me and you and us.
I know. It's really special.
And thank you for all the invites to Fancy Party.
Of course.
Literally looking forward to that every single year that we were invited.
Yeah. I know. I miss Fancy Party, and I don't know. It would be nice to think about a revival, but I think we're
in due time.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be you guys either. Someone out there.
Seriously. It's true. It's really true. So what are the websites that people go to learn
There's
about
several.
Yeah.
There's wildoceanmarket.com.
Okay.
And that is for our retail markets, and you can order online for the restaurant too during business hours. There's wildoceandirect.com, which is the shipping website. And then there's wildoceandelivery.squaresite.com, I think. Actually, just go under wildoceanmarket.com under locations, and then you'll see the Audubon Market and order online.
Yes.
Because I can't exactly tell you the exact URL for the Square site.
Sure.
And that's the Audubon Market ordering site. Important thing about the Audubon Market ordering site is you want to get your order in by 9 a.m. on Monday morning. I update that website Saturday nights usually, but really sign up for the newsletter. Yeah. And my email is Cinthia, CINTHIAS, as in Sam, at wildoceanmarket.com. I can add you to the newsletter. And the newsletter really just breaks down like what I suggest you should get, or like what's coming in, what's going out, kind of give you a season's perspective of the seafood. And it's kind of like a reminder to have you order by Monday morning.
And if you order early, you can ensure that things haven't run out too, because
I
you have a
slept.
limited supply. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part is because I cut everything on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So then by the time I'm there, I mean, some things have sold out Sunday.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay, well, not everyone will get this.
Right.
So I have to text people and be like,
Sure.
hey, can we do a substitute?
But the sooner you order, you said you usually put the list out Saturday nights.
Yeah, Saturday nights is when I update, and then you have a full day plus a little bit of hours like on Monday.
Because I know Gabby's always like almost the first on that. She's
She's
like, okay,
really good
what are we planning on doing Tuesday? Which is the coolest. Yeah.
She's really good about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Cool. And on Instagram and all the places you can find Wild Ocean as well.
Yeah, we're active. We're socially active, I guess.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, it's all part of it.
It is. I enjoy them, but they take so much time and effort to do. But I do enjoy them, like doing the social media aspect of that.
Do you do all that stuff yourself too?
I do. I just wish I had more time because with I have a weird role. It's an ever evolving role.
Sure.
So part of it is social media, part of it is like the 1% shipping department, part of it is office work.
Wow.
I'm doing this presentation, right?
Yeah.
I did like 3 events last week, so I'm the event person. And I'm also the IT person. So when there's a network problem, I'm like, okay, I gotta figure this out.
Wow.
So we're just I'm in the process of getting the routers or the access points changed this Tuesday. So yeah, like it's a very tricky, but that's what's so fun about a small business too.
Yeah.
It's like you literally learn everything.
Yes.
So
you
very
get to
grateful.
be hands-on. Yeah. And you are just so, I mean, I've seen so many things. I'm like constantly impressed by you. I've seen you win like a crab eating contest at Red Light before.
I didn't win.
I
wish.
mean, you didn't win?
No, I didn't, but I was aggressive about it.
In my mind,
crab.
in my mind, you were the winner because just your technique and your skill. I can think of so many other things that I've just been impressed by you in, and I don't know, you're awesome, and
Thank you.
thank you for taking the time to talk to me today, and we'll see you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye. Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast, is brought to you in part by Stardust Video and Coffee, Audubon Park's beloved neighborhood cafe, bakery, bar, and meeting place, located at 1842 East Winter Park Road. We're also sponsored by Red Light Brew Pub. Founded in 2005, Red Light is widely known as the source for world-class imports and microbrews. A wide selection of natural wines, plus award-winning beers brewed in-house. A full kitchen is in the works with an amazing menu by Chef Jess Tantalo. Located at 2810 Corinne Drive, please check out Red Light for all things beer and wine and soon food. Our theme song is by Christopher Pierce, and special thanks to Trey Hester for all of his help in making this podcast a reality. We do hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please click subscribe and leave a review if you'd like. We'll see you next time.